Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. We have Mike Martin joining us here today. He's an author. He's an experiencer. He has a pretty awesome perspective on the phenomenon. We're going to be talking about that, astral traveling, and a lot more. Don't you guys go anywhere. Let me go ahead and check and see who has come on in first tonight, courtesy of Race Fan, and it looks like we got Kitty Catty Whack with the gold tonight. We got Lil Camp 5-1 with that bronze, and we have Road Flare with the bronze. I'm sorry. So we got Kitty Catty-Whack with the silver, or Lil Camp 5-1 with the silver. So Kitty Catty-Whack with the gold, Lil Camp 5-1 with the silver, Road Flare with the bronze. Appreciate you guys coming on in tonight bright and early as we get into the show. It's going to be an awesome conversation. Hey, Kitty Catty-Whack, thanks for coming in. Race Fan, I see you out there. You didn't make the top 3, but that's okay. You can't have it all the time. It's all good. We got David Norenberg out there saying, hey, how's everybody doing? How you doing, Kitty? Appreciate you coming on in. Dave Norenberg. Who else do we have out there? We have Mel WD40, of course, getting us lubed up, ready to get into the show. We got Roger Murray out in the building. I see you out there, Roger Murray. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up here tonight. It's going to be an awesome show, I promise you. We got Eternity Eternal. I see you out there as well. Thanks for coming on in. Who else do we have? Let's move down the list. Flat 6. Time to get spaced out. That's what I'm talking about. Thanks for coming in, Flat 6. Let's see. Who else do we have? Amanda's Crazy Life Channel. Thank you for coming on in. Rob's intro is my favorite. Love it. We love that you love it. Appreciate you coming on in as well. Fred Astaire. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you coming on in tonight. We got Candace Helfrich. Sounds like a new name. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing on up here at the After Hours radio show tonight. Thanks for coming on in. Who else do we have? We are moving down the list pretty quickly here. Paramarvelous. Thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing up. And I think we'll get to the end tonight. Looks like we'll get there. Yeah, we did. We are all caught up, ready to get the podcast side started on this, but I can't do that before we say what's up to Dookie Pickles. Dookie Pickles coming in from X saying, can't wait for this show. So what I'm talking about, conversation to move the needle. I think that might happen here tonight. I'm just feeling that way. We'll see what happens as we get ready to go ahead and start the podcast side of the show right about now. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. We have experiencer and author Mike Martin joining us for My Dark Explorations for hours 1 and 2, getting into some real deep stuff, astral travel, the whole 9. We got Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up in hour 3, along with Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Mr. Person Mysteries, and the UFO and Weird News. Guys, let's just get it going. Let's go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we're broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free for the free ski. YouTube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram @SpacedOutRadio and @SpacedOutRadio Show. Our website is still and always SpacedOutRadio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with us on our newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot, and oh, so much more. Once again, we're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have Mike Martin, author, experiencer, talking astral travel here tonight for hours 1 and 2. We also have Drew Banky with After Hours wrap up in hour 3, along with Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Miss Person Mysteries. Basically, that means don't go anywhere tonight. It's going to be an awesome, fantastic show. And you know how we do it here. We jump right on into the show, which is what we're about to do. So let me go ahead and bring my guest up properly tonight. We have Mike Martin from My Dark Explorations. Mike Martin has, for the last 35 years, explored and studied interdimensional travel, alternate realities, the dream state, and altered states of consciousness. Mike was introduced to portals during experimentation with lucid dreaming, and that has created a unique perspective of study that most have never experienced. Mike's current intention is to help others understand the prison system that we all inhabit and how we can all escape. Wouldn't you like to know that? You may find out here tonight. Mike has a few books on Amazon as well. My Dark Explorations, the Spiritualist Manifesto, Leaving the Illusion of Life, and also has that YouTube channel over there, My Dark Exploration. Make sure you guys go over and give him a subscribe if you haven't already. And let's go ahead and bring our guest in for the night here, Mike Martin. Hi, Mike. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great, Mike. As we talked before the show, yes, I said, I saw you. I watched the show that you were on, in just the topic alone and the way you approach it, which I think is really unique. And I think everybody out there will come to find that out here tonight as we get ready to jump in. But first, let's start slow. How'd you get into this? You're here at this point in your life. You're going on these shows. You're talking a good game here as well. How did you even get here? Did you have a extraterrestrial experience young, or what led you down this path?
Well, my intention was never, when I first started this, my real interest about 35 years ago or more. My intention was never to get into any of this. At the time, everybody. I mean, if you wanted to publish your information, or you'd have to come out with a book or something of that nature. There was no internet or anything of that nature. But everything pretty much starts back when I was just a little kid, and I would have these. Some people would consider them a night terror, or they felt like an abduction. They were to the point where once I understood what or lucidity was within the dream state, then I understood that I was completely lucid. So imagine yourself being in a terrifying dream, but you're just as awake as you are right now. So it's just like, as a kid, you just think, oh, that was just a really bad dream. Of course, back in the 70s, nobody really talked about this stuff. I mean, it's not like you turned on the TV, not like you had YouTube back then where you could look up a lot of this stuff. There was no talk. And the worst thing you could do as a kid was to bring attention to yourself as if you were some kind of a strange person. So as a kid, we didn't bring any of this stuff up. So I was having these situations, but you just kind of get over it and you move on. And for many years I had them and I just didn't say anything. So when I got older in my 20s, I ordered this Time Life book series, and it was Mysteries of the Unknown, because I was always intrigued with, alien stuff or whatever. And when I got this book, I'm like, this is cool. Every other month I get this, this leather bound thing, and it has all these different stories. Well, I think the first or second one had astral projection in it, and that just blew me away. And I said, man, I got to try that. I'm the type of person that, I could get an interest, but I can't really believe anything unless I've really experienced it for myself. So I read the book by Robert Monroe, which that had made reference to in that Time Life book. So I got that book, Journeys Out of the Body, and I just read it through cover to cover and made notes, and I decided that I was gonna pursue it. So I decided, okay, there was a couple different ways. There's a vibrational method you can try laying in bed. And there's a couple other methods, but one method that seemed to kind of work for me is a method that makes you question your reality. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to achieve a lucidity in your dream state. So I figured, well, maybe lucid dreaming is my gateway, because that's a way to get into the astral. So I decided, okay, every day I'm just going to go ahead, set my watch, an alarm on my watch, and then ask myself several times during the day, am I awake? And I'd look at a solid object and I turn away and look again. And if it had not changed, then I knew I was in the obviously awake state, because if you're in a dream and you look at something, turn away and look at it again, it will have changed, because everything moves pretty quickly within that dream state. So every night I'm going to bed thinking, okay, I want to remember this. I want to be able to wake up in my dream and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just going back and forth. It took me almost 11 months to become successful. One night I realized there was something in one of my dreams. And at that point, I thought to myself, hey, I want to have an out of body experience. And then it occurred. I projected into the astral. I was in my spirit body, floating over a vehicle next to my house. And I'm taking into account the fact that I'm in two places simultaneously. So I'm trying to account for everything while I'm in this state, because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I just want to know what's happening. It's cold outside. I'm not cold. I can feel my body in bed. I can feel my body outside. All these different things are happening, and my peripheral vision is really wide. And it's just amazing. I'm just like, I can finally believe it, because I know it's true. So it wasn't long before I'm back in bed. I wake up, I write down everything, because I've been taking a dream log for many years. So that was my way of documenting all of my successes and failures and different techniques that I was using. So at that point I said, okay, now that I know it's conceivable, I know it's somewhat controllable, and I know it's achievable. So at this point I'm like, okay, should be easier. Took me 11 months, should be much faster now. That point didn't happen much faster again. Waited and waited and waited, and kept trying every night, 2-3 times a night, nothing. And finally, it was achieved a state of lucidity within a dream. I realized within a dream that I knew what was going on consciously. I was consciously aware of what was happening. At that point, I was going to tell myself to have an out-of-body experience, but instead I was taken back and put in bed. So now I'm just late. It was in a dream. All of a sudden I'm in bed, laying on my side, fully awake, with my eyes still closed. And I'm like, well, that sucked, because I'm not in the astral. But instead, there's this oval image in front of me. It's like a TV screen in the shape of an oval, big, really wide one. And it's bordered by this colorful border that's an oval shaped with some writing in it. And the actual oval image has moving things. And it's like I'm looking at a movie screen with water moving and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? And what is this writing? So I'm taking, mental note of everything as I'm experiencing this phenomenon. I don't know what it is. So I get to the point where about 30 seconds into it, it pixelates and disappears, and I open my eyes. Well, what that ended up being is a portal experience, the first one that I've ever had. And that was the beginning of about 35 years worth of those experiences. But what it was a turning point from me going into the astral and me being redirected into these portal experiences, which took the place of any future astral projections, because it actually repointed me into a different direction, put me on a different path, unknowing to me that the astral wasn't going to exist within my toolkit anymore. It was all being put towards those portals, and I never knew what they were until I just started having them. Every time that I would become lucid within a dream, I would see these, and eventually they went from the oval shape to the full peripheral vision. And if anybody's ever utilized their third eye and been on the astral, then they would know that your peripheral vision in that state is almost 360 degrees. So you can tell immediately that your physical sight is nowhere near what your the sight with your third eye is. It's the third eye is clear. Obviously, I wear glasses. I don't need them. And then also your peripheral vision is so much wider and so much more in depth. There's a depth that you just really can't compare to, because our physical vision and spectrum is so limited compared to what that is. So these were not controlled by me. I would succeed in the lucid state within that dream state, and then always be redirected back to these portals. So I wasn't controlling them. I was being kind of subjected to these occurrences every time that I would achieve that state. I'm pulled out, bypass the astral, back into a fully awakened state, just with my eyes closed. And if at any point in time I would open my eyes, then the connection with that portal would have been severed. And even if I close my eyes right after that, they would still be gone. So it was a visual occurrence within my third eye and not with my physical eyes. And that's how my journey, or my path, was laid out for me over that period of time. It was a relatively short period of time from the time that I really took an interest and started until the time the portal started was just about a year. And then at that point, the path was laid out for me, and that's the path that I followed along for many decades.
Wow. Okay, that is awesome. And if you could, because obviously there's in the community, these are common terms that we're using here: astral, lucid dreaming. We all know what that means as it pertains to the phenomena. But for somebody new stepping in, just figuring this stuff out, trying to figure it out at least, could you give your definition of astral traveling and lucid dreaming, the comparison of the two?
Okay. So you've got different states of mind. Like you have your awakened state. Now, a lot of times people will consider, like sometimes we live in a semi-comatose state where, you're focused on something, or you're just on autopilot. So you go to work every day, and if you're doing the same job, you kind of just fall into this ditch, and you just run autopilot. It's like if you're driving for a long period of time, you just kind of veer off and you're on autopilot. So what I tell people is there are a lot of different states that we have every day. So we have our dream state, which is at nighttime when we're sleeping. We have what we call our awakened state, but that could be various states. That could be your daydream state. could be your awakened state, it could be your fully lucid state. So we've got all these different levels of things that happen during the day and during the night. So I try to break them up based upon what I classify them as, like, okay, your awake state when you're pretty much communicating with people and stuff like that. And then there's a daydream state, which is very similar. So you have your daydream and your dream state, very, very similar conscious state. And I'll get into those later. But your dream state, so you go to sleep, and then let me go over this real quick. So you have a physical body on the physical plane, you have a spirit body on the astral plane, and then you have a soul above that, which is on the mental plane. So you have three individual, what I would say, bodies in our system. So your consciousness during the day is residing in your physical body, in your 3D environment. Then if you have a astral projection, a conscious astral projection, or an out-of-body experience, your consciousness will move from your physical body to your spirit body on the astral. And then it can travel, and you're consciously on that plane. Now, it doesn't walk around similar. That when I tell people is what I first thought about when I was on the astral plane is it looks just like this. So it's almost like you're here, but you don't have the physical limitations. So your spirit body is, you can fly, you can float, you can do all these things, but it still looks like this in certain areas because it's an overlayment of the physical world. It's just like your spirit body is just a 1 degree above it, and so is the astral plane. So when you see a lot of things, it looks similar to what it is here because it's an overlayment. So your spirit body's on that plane, you can do other things with it. So you have the ability to do that. So when your consciousness leaves the physical body and goes to the spirit body, your physical body is no longer, you can't move it at that point because you're moving your spirit body. Wherever your consciousness lies is where you have the ability to motivate it. So once your consciousness leaves your spirit body and goes back into your physical, you can move yourself. Wherever your consciousness lies that's what you can move. That's what you can control. That's the body that you can control. Now, if it goes to your soul on the mental plane, then you can move that body. But wherever your consciousness lies. Now, when you have a regular dream and it's not a conscious dream or a lucid dream, then most likely your subconsciousness is in control of your spirit body. Like your subconsciousness goes in control of your body when you're in a daydream or where you're driving and you just kind of go into the zone, or when you're at work and you're doing repetitive motions. Your subconscious is running the show. It kind of steps up and it does the work while your consciousness is sitting back here kind of like or watching a daydream. So that's the difference between the spirit body or an astral projection and physical life or a physical body. It's you're not going to know what happens on the astral plane with your spirit body unless your consciousness resides at that point or you're lucid within that point. That's no different from if you're in the zone consciously while you're driving your car physically and your subconscious takes over, you're going to lose all that time too. So it's no different from losing physical time in your daily life than it is to losing dream time or astral time in your dream state. It works both the same way because you're not in control. You're not consciously aware of what's going on. So you have to think about when you're consciously there, then you have control and then you have a memory of it. It's kind of the same thing when you're in a daydream state. If you just go off into a daydream, then it's the same way.
Great description. And as you were saying that, the driving part, I've heard you say that before, and that connects to me so vividly because I go on these long drives. I love doing that. And I drove to Vegas, and there's nothing but desert. And
right
on the last leg home of the trip, 2 hours left, and then all of a sudden I'm at home and I don't recall the full drive. I'm just like, I got here. I don't know how technically, but it's exactly as you talked about. So it's very interesting because I definitely do feel like there's more to that, especially. And I like how you talk about the overlay. The overlay sounds very interesting. We'll jump into that. But going back to being the kid and then figuring this out or being able to control or be aware more so of what you're doing and what's happening as you're in this state. How did that affect you as a child? I mean, did you go around telling people, I have this ability, like I can, when I can fly when I want to, or anything like that as a kid using the kid's state of mind?
No, I didn't say anything to anybody because if back in this, in the 70s when I grew up at school, um, if you were different in some way, then you generally weren't very popular. It was thought of as being weird, and I didn't
Mm,
want to be thought of as being weird or unusual to draw attention to myself because kids can be. I mean, it's just, and then
yeah.
with parents and stuff too. Back then, it was a little bit different. People didn't really talk about this, and especially like in the communities that I lived in, they were pretty much just working class, and they only really focused on what was happening in their life. They weren't really overly religious, or they weren't really overly. Their belief systems were pretty basic because that served that portion of their lives because they were so focused on their lives. They didn't really want to accept anything outside of that realm. So for
Mm.
me, that would have been seen as unusual, and I didn't want to be seen as anything of that nature because that's where things kind of fall apart for you as a kid because nobody wants to be known as the weird kid or whatever. It just, yeah, that was never going to happen. I was never going to tell anybody.
Interesting. Now, and yeah, I totally get it. I went through playing the dozens as a kid, and kids can be cruel and mean, and that was a different time. So I do understand that. Looking at this, when you talk about this overlay, because they want to get into that. So, are you? And I maybe let you. I won't speak for you, but are you essentially saying that we are experiencing the same world that we physically exist in when we're in that astral state, but we're just consciously in our spirit bodies at that point? Is that what you're sort of saying?
What I can say is, and I think this maybe will be a little more understandable. So, as different as the spirit body is from the physical body, the astral plane is as different. Um, okay, as different as the spirit is from the physical body, the astral plane is from the physical um, landscape. So it's like this. Okay, so if you have a radio station that's 98.0, and then you have another radio station that's 99.0. Okay, they're two completely different stations. They're two completely different frequencies. One could be rock and roll, and the other one could be classical. So they have their differences because they're in different places, and that's how things kind of work. So the spirit plane or the astral plane is different from the physical plane, but because I don't know if it's because they reside similarly at a similar frequency. That's why you can see. It's almost like being in another, like in a cable car, and you're or whatever, and you can see through the window and you can see the physical landscape. But the astral plane is different. So,
Yeah, that's okay. Hold right there. Getting into some interesting stuff. Thanks for the breakdown. We'll be right back with Mike Martin. Get into more astral travel talk, portals, and a lot of other strange and weird things here tonight. The Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We'll be right back after the break. All right, we are clear, and I appreciate that. It came up on us pretty quick. Let me reach back out here because I know I missed a few people in our audience here. Let's see. And just so you know, Mike, we got 5 minutes. So if you need to do anything right now, I'm going to read off a
Okay.
few names out the chat here. Richard Minnick, thanks for coming on in. Yep, Mel did get us all lubed up for sure. That's exactly what happened tonight. And let's see, who else do we have? Tyler 420. Tyler 420, I see you out there. Also, Mike Jones. Who? Mike Jones. Thanks for coming on in. We got Kevin Kennedy, TMI. Thanks for coming on in here. Appreciate you showing on up to the After Hours radio show. Who else has snuck on in at the first break of the night? Did I say hi to Broken Shadow Feather? I don't know if I did. Thanks for coming on in. If I missed you, Gray Owl, I did see you come in right after we started. So thanks for coming on in, Gray Owl. Appreciate you showing on up. Let's see. Emperor Penguin is here. Sure is. Hey, Emperor Penguin, thanks for coming on in here tonight. And let me see. Let me read this real quick. Broken Shadow says, the Broken Shadow Feather. One time had a crazy lucid dream a few years ago, and I woke up crying. Had to go sit outside for a bit. It was some kind of nightmare. Can't remember exactly what happened, but it wasn't good. Feel for you on that. Those crazy lucid dreams seem so realistic. Yeah. I mean, you're going through all that trauma as if you're in this physical existence. And this is where the lines get blurred, right? Because you don't know if you're asleep or not, right? And this is what Mike will be talking to us about here, being able to not really control, but just be more aware while you're in the state that you are in the state, right? Yeah. If I said that right, or if I confused you, don't worry about it. Is we'll be breaking that down a little bit later in the show here. Man, this Crazy Life channel. Have you all seen what's happening in LA right now? I heard some tidbits earlier in the day. Yeah, not a good time right now, and apparently it's gotten a little worse. Don't know. Haven't been able to tune in, but prayers, all that good stuff to everybody down there. Obviously, I'm an hour north of LA right now. My daughter's out there right now as well, at UCLA. So hope she's staying far from the drama. Ben Revere, thanks for coming on in. Mike is one of the few people on YouTube I trust. He has made a big impact in my understanding. And thank you, Ben Revere, and thanks for coming on in. That's exactly why we had to do the show, because I felt the same way. And these are definitely the conversations that will move the needle. Having better understandings and listening to different perspectives. We've all heard astral travel. We've all heard the conversation, right? Many people talk about it, but there's a unique outlook here, and definitely I see the value in having this conversation. So I agree with you, Ben Revere. Thanks for coming on in. And as well, let me go ahead and do the spiel real quick, because I do see a few new names out there. Bim Jim, I see you out there as well. Ian McFadden, I see you. Ciela Azul, I see you. Also, Jeremy Jones, I do see you. Holy ish, the After Hour show was live. Yeah, it is. It is. Life happens sometimes, right? Life happens sometimes where you got to mail it in. But we are live tonight. We are live. Earth Goat Trees, thanks for coming on in. Richard Minnick, thanks for the awesome super chat. Thanks for your support of Spaced Out Radio and the After Hours radio show. Jay True Seeker, I see you out there. Brian Thompson, bada bing, bada bing. Thanks for coming on in. And yeah, so to all the new people here, essentially you're coming to the show here on Saturdays and Sundays right here on Spaced Out Radio. We do the After Hours radio show, which is 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. Pacific. You also have Dirty Fields, who goes on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Pacific, drawing your favorite cryptid cartoons. We have Grantavious Max with UFO Max on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific. We have Lee and Tim James on Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific, right before Dave Scott. And obviously, Dave Scott running the Root Train Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. until midnight. That just means there's 7 days a week, something going on right here on Spaced Out Radio. So make sure you please go ahead and hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe, consider coming back. We'd appreciate you guys all doing that as we get right back into this conversation. We have about 15 seconds left. We'll go ahead, get ready to bring our guests back up here. And guys, I know you're going to get some good questions in. I don't even have to worry about that. But those who come in hour two, make sure they're in all caps. Coming back from the break in 2 seconds. Let's get ready to go. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are back with our guest here, My Dark Exploration, Mike Martin, getting into talking about astral travel, the difference between astral travel and lucid dreams. We're going down a rabbit hole tonight. Make sure you don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay right here. If you miss any of the conversation, jump in the archive. It's youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, where the options are endless as we go ahead and jump right back up into this conversation here. So you were kind of describing the differences kind of between lucid dreaming, astral traveling. Do you remember exactly where you were at, or we can continue?
Yeah, you were asking what the difference between the astral and kind of how it is, because I said it was an overlay.
Yes.
To a degree, it is. It's the best way to try to explain it to is because utilizing portals is a very similar way to explain it. Portal is a way to connect two places simultaneously. So whether it's where I'm at right now to somewhere across the United States or somewhere across the universe, what it does is it brings two locations to one place. It separates. So it proves to me that we are separated by not just what we consider space or time, but really it's kind of like a frequency, because once you've left here and been somewhere else, you realize, first of all, there is no such thing as time. Time doesn't exist. There is only the present. The past is a memory and the future is a projection. So basically, whatever is happening right now is what is real. So you realize that, and then you also realize that if you're going to go from here to somewhere else, there's no time. It doesn't take any time to go there. There's no travel time. There's no A to B. A and B are in the same spot. So portals prove to me that that happens. So what happens is, because when I say the astral is nothing but an overlay, is we're in the same place at the same time. So what's happening in the astral is also happening here, but since it's on a different radio frequency or a different radio station, because all the radio stations are always at your AM/FM receiver at all times, you just have to tune into them. Mm-hmm. But they're all always right there, and that's what happens with all space. All space is occurring in the same space. It's just at different frequencies, and you have to be with your third eye. You can see things that you normally can't see with your physical eye. So if our visual spectrum was as wide as what we have a possibility to be, then we could see a lot of things going on around us, because they're happening around us, but we don't have the ability to tune into them, not with our regular vision.
Awesome explanation. And, so let me ask you this, because I know that you have talked about being able to, I don't know if it's teaching potentially someone how to be aware that they're in that state while they're in the state. What is the benefit for that? Like, what would a person be able to do once they've unlocked that ability within themselves?
Well, the first thing you got to do is, and it might seem like a stupid answer, but being lucid while you're awake. But if you think about it, you think about like when you go on long drives, you lose time, and you're losing time because your attention or your focus is not there. Your focus drifts off. And when your focus drifts off, then maybe your subconsciousness takes over the reins. So it's driving the car, or it's doing the mundane duties that you just kind of drift off and don't think about. So being consciously there all the time is very important if you're going to be aware of what's going on around you. And the other thing is not only being consciously aware, but understanding what's going on and why it's happening. So if you're not, you're already giving up what, 8 hours at night or 6 hours at night. You're giving up that whole conscious time when you're sleeping because your subconscious takes over and you get dreams and stuff. And dreams are just basically filtered garbage that you receive. It's if you really knew what was happening with your astral or with your spirit body at night, then it would be wow, that'd be great. But you don't get that information. So basically, what's happening when you're sleeping, your consciousness is sitting here and it's watching this movie screen, and the movie screen is just giving it a bunch of basically commercials. Is all you're getting. I did dream. I wrote down my dreams for 30 years, and I could never really find anything that was anything of use until I figured out what was happening, because I discovered this through the daydream state. But your subconsciousness is going out there and doing all this stuff, and you're not getting any of that feedback. So you've lost half your life right there. At nighttime, there's nothing there, so you're losing all that. Why give up your daily any parts of your daily life to the subconsciousness control? Why aren't you driving the system? So if you become conscious while you're awake, then you can begin to question your reality, like, hey, am I awake? Am I asleep? Or whatever. So what I was doing is, in the beginning, to become lucid within a dream, I was questioning my reality. I did it 20, 30 times a day, maybe. I don't remember how, but once I got in the habit of it, I was asking myself constantly, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? And then looking at it, staring at an object, turned away, stared at it again. I was questioning my reality. And what happened is, because I was doing that on such a regular basis, when I went to sleep, that kind of spilled over into my sleep, my consciousness. So at night, I was questioning my dreams unconsciously. And then that's how I figured out, hey, there was something wrong in the dream. All of a sudden I'm like, wait, that's not right. And as soon as I realized that, I'm lucid within that dream. And at that point, anybody can either take control of the dream, play it out, or they can think to themselves in that state that they want to have an out-of-body experience, and then they're whisked out of the dream into the astral. That's the gateway that I used. I used lucid dreaming as a gateway into the astral, but it ended up becoming a gateway into the portals. So it kind of redirected me into another path. But that's why questioning reality and being lucid at all times is a benefit for you, because it makes you aware of what's really going on.
Wow, that's deep. That is super deep right there. And it makes total sense. It makes total sense training yourself to be lucid in your waking life. And then that because the question would be, obviously, when you're in this dream state, how do you remember or become aware enough to challenge that or question if you are dreaming or if this is reality? So that's actually a good tool to use there, and you explained it brilliantly. Now, getting into yes,
I
sir.
like that one more thing I didn't bring up in the beginning. Well, I
Yep.
did say that I was documenting my dreams. What happened was, before I started all this is when I did the dream documentation. But just like most people, I didn't remember my dreams, so I didn't think I would have the ability to have dream memory. So what happened was, I decided, okay, I got a book next to the bed with a pen. I had a little flashlight, and I said, okay, I'm gonna remember. So I tell myself before I go to bed, I want to remember my dreams. So I might wake up one in the morning and I remember one dream, and then eventually, within I don't say a couple weeks, I was remembering 5, 6 dreams a night. So what was happening is, by consciously telling myself and making myself aware that I wanted to remember. So what I would do is wake up in the middle of the night and I would write a key word down from each one of the dreams that I remembered. So I would write the keywords down. So when I woke up in the morning, I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe a cow, whatever a cow was in it. So I remember that and I write it all down. I just wake up in the morning, look at my keywords, and I'd write pages of dreams, because what that was doing is it was making me consciously aware of to find out what was going on at night. And that set me up to have an easier dream recall, so that I knew that I had some more control at night than what I had before, because now I was consciously becoming aware, and that helped set me up for the becoming lucid within a dream. So that kind of was a stepping stone to get to the next level.
Wow. Okay. And so no one guided you on this path. You kind of just put these things together yourself as time went on.
Yeah, basically just what, I mean, I read the book, The Journeys Out of the Body. And then before that, I had been keeping a dream log because I was interested in that, thinking that there could be potentially something there. So I'd probably been doing that for maybe a couple years first. And then I came about the out of body experience. So I kept my dream log. And then I was also aware of my dreams at night most of the time, but I wasn't lucid. So I used the question my reality, along with still writing my dreams down so that I could document everything. And then once I was successful in lucid dreaming, then I did the out of body, and then I continued on with the using lucid dreaming as a gateway, and that's when the portal started. So it's kind of like I just worked my way up through these different levels of process of elimination to see what worked for me. And then once I found something that worked, then I would build upon that and try to utilize. And I kept doing what I was doing from before. So I just kept working on that and just kept building upon that. And it just kept leading to something different.
Okay. So, and I think you've laid it out, like I said, very well. So getting to now, okay, you're able to have more control over your sleeping state, your dream state, and you stated that this is what then opened the door for out of body experiences and then these portals. Can you kind of now take us down that path?
So, I mentioned the first out of body experience. And then after I'd had that and I was, just kind of reading through it, I'm like, wow, okay, wait, I was having these as a kid, but they were uncontrolled. And so I just didn't know what it was. But now that I've experienced it, then now I know what it is. So I know that I was having the real bad, like, night terror dreams, and I was having out of body experiences as well as a kid. But I didn't have a description of it. I didn't know what it was. So now I could correlate that's what was happening to me as a kid. But like I said, those were uncontrolled. They would just happen. And like I said, I didn't have a description for them, so I didn't know what they were. So now that I had set a baseline of knowing what that is and becoming successful in a controlled one, and then when the portal started, then I decided, okay, well, I guess I still kept trying to get on the Astral, but the portals kept occurring, and I thought, well, I'm going to go with the flow because this is obviously the path that I'm being led on. So I want to see how far I can go with this. So what I was doing is, I just had that. It all relied on me becoming lucid within a dream. So once I became lucid within a dream, it took me to the portal. So I had to become better at that. So I just kept up my questioning my reality. And I found a few things during that whole process that helped me along. One of them was, back then I was trying different things. Like I worked on Reiki, and I did some worked with some pyramid structures to see if that would increase my chances, which it did. And at the time I had some crystals and stuff like that. I was trying anything that I could think of to increase my chances of having these experiences. And at the time, as I'm going through this whole process, I'm realizing that I feel this energy surge in my body, and all this stuff was going on. So I'm trying to categorize things so that I can see what works for my situation. So as I'm experiencing different portal experiences, basically I'm seeing things from different landscapes, different places, different times. And it's really hard to explain, because when you see somewhere, if you don't have any landmarks, you really can't. There's nothing, you can't really describe it. You can say, well, it looks like this, or it looks like this, but I don't know where it's at because I don't have any names, and like I said, any of the writings were all in a foreign language. They're like kind of like a mixture of hieroglyphics and old fancy Celtic and um, three-dimensional letters. So there was nothing to compare it to. It was just so ultra ordinary that you're like, okay, well, I don't even know what one letter is, let alone remember to. I don't have a photographic memory, so I can't write them all down. I can't even remember one. It doesn't even look. It's so foreign to me. So anything that I would see, if I couldn't grasp it as something that I recognized, then it was very difficult to explain. So I'm going through this process, over and over. And sometimes I might have one when they would start, like maybe I'd have one night, Monday night. I'd have one on Monday night, and then it might last 30 seconds, and the quality of the image is 4K. So if I have one, maybe the next night, the duration of the experience would be 50%, and the resolution would be about 50%. If I had one the following night or 2 nights later, it would degrade really bad. So it was very blurry, and it was very short. So what I derived from all that was the fact that I was having these experiences, but also the experiences take some energy from me in order for the experience, like for the portal to stay open. So the experience would drastically shorten if I had them in close proximity to each other within the last a couple nights or whatever. If I wait a week, then everything would kind of reset, and then I could have those experiences, and they would be, full length and full resolution. But so as I go through this process, I'm realizing there's certain things that I have to supply, as well as what's being supplied to me. So it was kind of a learning process, and eventually they stopped. They kind of just, like, I would get to that point, I would become lucid, and I'm back in bed, and it's blank. I'm like, okay, so what's this all about? So after about the third time that happened, I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a clue to let me know that maybe I should do it. So after about the third time, I said, let me try it myself. And I was successful to open it myself. So I'm like, okay, all those years were a learning experience. And now I have the ability to duplicate the opening just like they were doing for me all those years. So that started a whole new kind of ball game. So after I began that, I was also doing a long drive like we just talked about. It was a commute for work and back. And what happened was I'm getting to the point where in the summertime, it's extremely long sit and wait on the freeway. Mm. And you're kind of in and out of your on and off, or you're in and out type of, the lucidity is not there all the time. So what I realized is, this is over months or probably a year, I realized, okay, I would drift into this daydream state. So, when your consciousness is watching a daydream, it's like watching a movie screen right here. So what's happening is there's something going on behind that movie screen. I was able to see a glimpse of it, and I started calling them glimpses, but I didn't know what they were. I knew something had occurred. I knew I would witness it, but I didn't know what it was. So what I did is I kept pushing it. Finally, I had to make sure that I didn't do it while I was driving, and was able to find out after well over a year that we are all utilizing a portal connection behind the daydream state. Our subconsciousness is going back there and communicating with different alternate realities, different dimensions. And I was able to tag along behind it and see that. What happened was, every time I would come back through the veil, I would forget everything, because it's like taking a hard drive through a magnetic field. So it took me probably another 6 months to be able to go there, bring that information back, and retain it. And once I did that, that's when the experiences, direct experiences, controlled experiences, to the other side of the veil began. And that's where I started meeting a lot more beings and seeing what was going on behind there and realizing, wow, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So that's where we're at right now.
Mind blowing. And let me ask you this: we have about 4 minutes till break. So because you were able to kind of harness the ability to be lucid while in the dream state, which then opened up the door to recognize these portals. Do you think so for the rest of us? Because I heard you say that we all probably do it. Because let me give you an example. So I've had this dream that's recurring, and it's happened over the last 20 something years, and I end up come right into this what seems to be a neighborhood, never seen it before. The street, everything on the street, everything that happens while I'm there is to the T, detailed to the T. And it feels like when I'm there that I'm really there. I'm really at this place. So for me then, or for anyone else, did I need to step through that portal in order to get to that place that I was at in the dream? Had I already stepped through the portal at that point?
Well, when I say when I say go through a portal, it could be nothing but a shift in consciousness, a shift in awareness, a shift in focus. Okay. So what that does is we see things as like, okay, you have to step through a hole or you have to step through a window, but that's not the way things work. It's a shift. And that shift allows you to move to different places. So what it sounds to me like, and that for me is textbook alternate reality. I've been through many of them. And what's happening is you are in that place. You are that person. It's not you, but you are that person in that situation. And while you're there, you are just as much a part of it as you are right now, is the person you are now. So I've been in it many times. And the shift is it's like a blink of an eye. There is no anything. What happens is when you're experiencing that. Now, what fortunately I've trained myself enough to where when I go through these shifts that I'm aware on the other side because I've done it so many times. It's like it's autonomously waking me up on the other side. Because what happens is when I go into the daydream state, there's a moment where my eyes close. And generally when your eyes close, you drift off into the dream state. But for some reason, I've gotten to the point where now when my eyes close, my consciousness immediately wakes up and knows where it's at because it's gone through it so many times. I've trained it to do that. So what sounds to me like textbook is alternate reality, especially if you keep experiencing the same place over and over. It's more than just a dream. It's part of your reality is what it is. And when people ask me, how many do you think there are alternate realities? I would say there's an infinite number of them because I've never revisited a single one more than one time. And it's always vastly different. No comparison. No, they're way different. So to me, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and then it's great how you talk about that and being able to harness that ability, and it makes total sense that you would want to use that what is otherwise looked at as wasted time if you're unable to kind of harness that. So it makes sense why it would be beneficial to want to do that, to kind of, I don't know, not necessarily extend, but experience, more than you would just not having that ability. So that's pretty awesome and deep as well. And I'm actually getting my mind around it right now, as I know everyone else out there is. And I think you're doing a brilliant job of laying it out for us here. But we're going to go ahead and take our top of the hour break right here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back with Mike Martin getting into more of this conversation. You guys don't go anywhere.
Conversations that move the needle. You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we are clear. And Mike, we're off camera for the next 5 minutes. So I'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're having a fantastic conversation here tonight with Mike Martin. He is educating us. He's giving us different perspective. We're going to go into your questions at the end of this hour, guys. So make sure you put them in caps so I can see them. I'm wearing glasses, but I still need you to put them in caps so I can see them. So we have about 15 seconds left before we come back from our radio break here. 10 seconds. Bring our guest back on up here. 5 seconds. And here we go. All right. That crashed. Give us a second here. Yeah, Christine, wearing glasses is only half of it. Sweet Robbie G, I get it. We still can't see some stuff. Yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and get us back from break here. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2. That means your questions are going to get answered tonight by our guest, Mike Martin, author, experiencer, talking astral travel, lucid dreams, whole new perspective. Loving it. If you missed any of the conversation, make sure you jump in the archive because they're free. They're absolutely free. YouTube.com/the Spaced Out Radio as we get ready to jump right back into the conversation. So, okay. So, and I talked to you right before the break, Mike, and the kind of assume portals would be what everybody considers to be this portal opened up, but I really meant to ask you before that actually to kind of describe your definition of a portal, which you did, and I appreciate that. So more like a shift, which makes total sense. Now, when I researched you and I looked into some of your information, when portals were brought up, there were also beings that were brought up, BEING, beings. What were they and how did this happen, if you wouldn't mind going into that?
Okay. Well, I did see some things on the other side of the portals that I saw with the nightly portals, but I started really seeing the things, the beings behind what we all consider the daydream state. So when I started investigating behind the daydreams, which I call the glimpse, I call it the glimpse state, because when it first started, I would get glimpses of things that were happening. But like I said, I wasn't being able to pull the information back. But there was enough there for me to know that something happened. So at that point, I started boring into figuring out what was going on. Once I was successful, I was able to go behind the daydream state. Basically, I was tail gunning the subconsciousness as it makes these trips back to alternate realities and different dimensions, while our consciousness is supposed to be watching this daydream screen. So I was able to go behind there. And when I was going behind there, I would be immediately in the middle of I would be listening to someone. Now, when I say someone, usually it looked human, and usually it looked like a town, like something you'd see here. Although I knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't human, and I knew that the backdrop was not what it was supposed to be, what it looked like. So basically, what was happening is there was a grand production being created for me, and then I was being given this information. I thought, wow, this is going to be groundbreaking stuff, like free energy, whatever. And then once I got that information back, it was like general conversation, and I was completely let down. I was kind of floored, like, wow. I went through all this just so I could hear useless information. I mean, some of the stuff had to do with me personally, but it wasn't anything that was groundbreaking. It was like maybe having a conversation with somebody from a town. Nothing. It was no big deal. So I thought, wow, I went through a lot to get here, and this is not working. So one thing that did help me, though, I ended up showing up, go through the daydream state. And when I say show up, means there's either one of two states. One of them is, like you said, you felt like you were somebody else living a different life. Okay, that would be what I consider alternate reality. All of a sudden, in another, taking on another being's life. I'm living the life of what they're doing. Okay, that's alternate realities. The other one is different dimensions where I show up and I'm listening as me, but things are occurring around me and happening around me, and I'm being addressed as me. I ended up at the end of a cave. So there's me at the end of one cave, at the end of the cave, and there's another being at the end of another at the end of the same cave. And most of these beings that don't want to be seen, they have a large robe, kind of like a monk's robe, and they have the hood thrown over their head, so I can't see the face. It's all dark behind there. And one of them told me, "What you're seeing on our side, we get to see on your side, and these are portals." So at that point, I kind of already knew the fact that when I'm seeing something, say it's 100 feet wide by 100 feet tall from my viewpoint, whoever is on the other side is seeing that much of my environment. So they have the ability to do that. But what's happening is most of these portal experiences you can't cross it. You're on this side, they're on this side, or you feel you're within that in their territory, and you might not be, but they can't cross back over into my side. That was one of the things that I thought of in the very beginning. I thought, well, I hope something's not coming over here, but they can't. There's almost as if there's some kind of I'm sure there's some kind of a ruling oversight, something that allows these to happen, but creates some kind of a structure so that other beings from other places aren't just going to cross over into our area, and then we're not going to be able to freely cross over there without some kind of oversight. So there's obviously something that's going on, and I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know that there is something there that keeps the travel controlled. I believe there is some type of a hierarchy that oversees that. So I'm getting that information back and forth, and a couple of them in the very beginning, because when you first show up somewhere, it's like you're the new guy in town. Everybody wants to crowd around you. It's like going to the pyramids for the first time. They want to all be your tour guide, so they're going to all crowd around you and tell you they have the best tour, and everybody's and then you're supposed to pick them, and they take you under their wing, and then you kind of follow them, and that's how they want you to do it. It's pretty obvious. But there was a couple red flags in the beginning. One was that several beings told me, "Hey, we can show you how to keep these portals open," which to me was an immediate red flag, because I know, number one, that it takes some form of my energy in order to open them and hold them open, and there's no way I'm willing to put myself on the line for that. And if it was so easy to open them, then why wouldn't you do it yourself? Because you're obviously going to utilize me to some degree. So yeah, there was a lot of things. But once I started asking questions and delving deeper into what was going on there, man, everybody disappeared, because they want somebody who's going to follow, but they want followers, but they don't want people to question of what's going on, or why things are happening, or why do we do this, or where am I? They don't want to answer those questions. So you become the unpopular guy. So it didn't take too long before I became the unpopular guy, only because I wasn't going to, follow their lead, which is what is the preferred thing. Same thing happens in the astral. These beings, they want people to follow them so that they can feed them information, which is also another form of control or manipulation. So when people ask me about either the astral or different dimensions or whatever, the first thing I tell them is every being everywhere, whether it's on Earth or not, has their own agenda. And there's absolutely no way you're ever going to know what that agenda is if you're not them. It doesn't matter what they show you, doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter where they stand or what they have. They have an agenda. There's no way that you're going to know what that is. And you have to ask questions no matter where you're at. question everything, even your own experiences. And I spent a very, very, very long time doing that. Just what I say is to question everything, question every experience. And the only way that you're going to know the truth behind anything is to go back over and over decades, not just once or 15 or 100 times. Keep going. Because if you want to know what the truth is, you have to dig down deeper below the surface, because there's a lot of people that have NDEs or they have a few experiences, and they believe that because they've been told that, oh yeah, we're great and we're here to help and all that kind of stuff. But you have to think about it. If somebody was going to manipulate you, the first thing they want you to do is to be the one to feed you the information, whether it's a spirit guide or whatever. They want to tell you what to say and what information to put out there. Why do you think that is? Because they control the narrative. You want to control your own narrative, and you want to find out your own answers. So the only way you're going to do that is to go in with both feet and keep going.
I like it. I like it. And you're filling in a lot of holes, Mike, in the conversations that a lot of us have around this subject and just the whole interdimensional aspect of it. Also, I talked to Reed Summers. Shout out to Reed Summers and Emergent. And he has a perspective on it. Like, let's just look at these extraterrestrials' actions to try to determine what their intent is. And then we went down a rabbit hole talking about, some of the experiencers that have had this direct contact and have had received messages or downloads, and essentially they become a tool for this particular extraterrestrial. And the question ends up being, how do you know you're not being deceived? How do you know that you're not being used as a tool to spread misinformation on behalf of said extraterrestrial race? And
Right.
that's yeah, go ahead. You filled in a good gap there.
Yeah. If you're going to manipulate somebody, the first thing you want to do is get control of the information, the flow of information. That's how you manipulate them. It's the simplest textbook way to do that. It's a psychological operation. You get people to trust you. And then at that point, because what happens is people are so happy and enamored with, being successful, whether going on the Astral or spirit guide or whatever state you're in, you're so happy to meet these beings, and you just obviously you're trusting. I understand that. When I first started, I was like, okay, you trust them, but you begin to see a pattern. You have to really think, because if you were in a strange city and you just ran into somebody on the street, are you going to completely trust them right off the bat? Chances are you probably won't. So why would you trust a being somewhere else just because they're from somewhere else? It doesn't make them any more trustworthy, or because they have a flowing gown on, or because they have angel wings or whatever. So you immediately think that that's going to be a trustworthy being, which is not. It just because you can't judge a book by its cover, you have to go by the content, and you have to get to know the being or the person or whatever. And like I said, you're never going to know what's going on behind, in their head or wherever they're thinking from. So that's why you have to go at everything by questioning everything and going from that premise, because if you don't, then you're going to quickly run into trouble, because people are just, like I said, they're so trusting. And if somebody tells them they want to hear what they want to hear, that's another thing. Because when you go into these places, when I say places or spaces, they read you like a book, because all of our information is out there in a etherical database. They read that like we would read a computer system. So if I wanted to find information out about somebody, if I was going to manipulate somebody, I'd go on the database and I'd find all the information I could, so I knew how to psychologically control them. Well, they have that information immediately. So when you go on the astral plane or whatever plane you're at, they have all your information. They know your wants, your needs, your thoughts, your emotions, your triggers. You know, you want to see your mom, you want to see your daughter or whatever. They're going to emulate whatever and set up an experience that will basically get you right into where they want you. It's going to lure you right in so they can set the psychological trap on you. So you'll believe whatever you're going to see, what you want to see, and that's how it's going to play out. I would say, it's a production created just for you, and people fall right for it because if I was going to do this, that's how I would do it because it's psychologically the smartest way to do it. And another thing I want to bring up is so back to the dream state, astral connected. So after about I don't know 10 years ago, these dreams, these like nightmarish dreams started all over again. This time I was lucid during them. I mean, lucid as an adult, so I knew what was going on. And it would rile me up. I would obviously get fully into it, and then I would be pulled out of that instance and into a portal, which basically every time that was happening, I was pulled into a portal, which was desensitizing me. So it was like it would get me right to the point where I'm just, I'm really aggravated and then pop me out of there. And then eventually I got to the point where I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to learn from this. And this is where I'm going to learn to control my anger, my frustration, or whatever fear that is there. I need to control that so that I can face this darkness that was encompassing my dream, my lucid dream. It was a blackness that is that you can't see through. So like if it's getting dark outside, you can still see on the other side of the yard until it gets so dark you can't see. But this was a blackness that you couldn't see through, even if it was a very thin layer. It absorbed light. So I knew it was something that was trying to absorb something from me. Fear, despair, anger, whatever. So finally I got to the point where I was able to meet it with absolutely no emotional attachment, no fear, no feelings. I was just there in the moment. I was there in the present. I walked up to it, and the closer I got, the less I could see but what happens is the darkness starts to kind of move around you so that it kind of blocks off all the light around your eyes. So you really can't see anything. I faced it, turned away, and I walked away. At that point, I didn't have any more issues with it. But what I learned from it is, and this is a very important part of it, being exposed to something of that nature for a long period of time, I was able to have an understanding. So it's like if me and you hung around for a couple years, I would know your ins and outs and your the things that you liked and you didn't like, and I get a real good feel if you got pissed, you were going to get mad at something. I would know, and if I was going to get mad at something, you would know. We really get a really good feel for each other. Well, when I was around this that much, I got a good feel of what it was about, what it was like, and why it was doing what it was doing, and for what purpose. What it was doing is it's trying to feed off of our fears and our emotions and different things that because what happens is like, so if say you're walking down a street at night and it's kind of like eerie, so the hair stands up on the back of your neck and you kind of feel like something could be following you. That is a release of energy at some point. You're releasing energy when you have emotional things happening or feelings or strong thoughts. You're releasing energy. And this is what they feed upon, whether it's completely negative or it could be partially positive. But what they're doing is they're pulling off energy from us because we are creative energy consciousness. So what's going on is they're doing that to us. And that's why for many years when I was a kid, they kept doing that to me. It was terrifying me. And I'm releasing all this energy and they're just absorbing it. So what they're doing is they're utilizing us as energy sources, and they're manipulating us for the purpose of us doing that. And as I began to look farther and farther into it, I could see that they basically look at us as we would look at cattle if that was our only food source. In which ways can we manipulate the cattle in order for them to produce the best or whatever? And that's how they utilize us. They don't see it's more of a predator prey situation where we have assumed the prey role and they are the predators. And it's not about not liking us or anything of that nature, but this is their sustenance and this is how they go about doing it. And what I basically figured out over a large amount of time and over much contemplation is the fact that, and this has been around for a long time. There was the first time that I've heard about it was Robert Monroe, and he talked about Loosh. That was, I never believed it. I refused when I read that in one of his books. I completely refused to believe that. I'm like, there's no way that happened. There's no way that occurs. I can't believe it. I completely, that's it. I'm not going to read any more of the stuff because I was that strong against the belief that that would even occur. Not until through many times over a long period of time of me experiencing what was going on did I come to accept it, only because I had gone through the experiences of it over and over and over, being manipulated in those ways in order to create what they were desiring. And so at that point, and by close proximity to them, I got to learn from them about how they think and why they think that way. The downside to that is you not only learn that, but then you also somewhat become that. So at that point, you start having attitude issues and really not very good thoughts and stuff like that. So that works its way out. It's almost like being, if you walk up to a flower and you're highly allergic to it and you breathe it in, it gets in your body and you have all these side effects of it, whether or not you want to or not. But you learn, hey, I'm not going back around that because now I have to get my body cleared out so that these effects go away. And that's kind of what happened with me. I got to see what the effects were like, but then I had to get rid of what I had absorbed from being around those beings.
So it almost sounds like being compromised on some level. And here's one question I would have then, because just describing that experience, and it's making perfect sense that when you get to the astral plane and you get in a perfect position for the misinformation to spread or them to attempt to get you to do the bidding for whatever that is, it feels like, and I guess I'll add, since you have the experience there, do you feel like when we enter this astral plane that we are subject to be swayed or lured into a position to have this interaction with said being? So are they luring us to this point in the astral space to have this interaction?
Anytime you go anywhere where there's any other beings, there's always going to be that potential. I mean, unless you're somewhere where there's no other beings and you're alone or something, but anytime there's other beings there, there's potential. Just like you could be anywhere in a city and run into good people and not good people, but there's always a potential. It's not, I would say out of the amount of times, 15% of the time out of all of them, there would probably be, the potential of it. But it's really hard to say. That's why I tell people don't believe everything they hear or what you're told. But what I say to, because there's a lot of people that are involved into whether spiritual guides or whatever that I want to make a point with, because we,
Before you make that point, hold that point. Let's go ahead and say that for right after this break, as we go into our final break already, right here on Spaced Out Radio with our guest, Mike Martin. Great conversation, Astral Talk. Man, if you missed it, hop in the archive. If you're here, don't go anywhere. If you do, make sure you come back right after the break. See you in 5 minutes. All right, we are clear. We are clear, and then you can pick that up right after the break.
Okay.
And we have our America's most experienced mystic in the building out there, Eugene Braxton. Eugene was just on the show the other night. Appreciate you coming on in, Eugene. Thanks for showing up here. Also, Amy WC. I see you out there, Amy WC. I see you out there. Appreciate you for coming on in. Stargazer as well. Stargazer, thanks for coming on in. To Mothman, all these guys coming in late tonight. That's okay. You're here, and I'm glad to see that. Thanks for coming on in and joining the conversation with us here. Who else? Cielo Azul. Cielo Azul. Also, Jackie with the pink poo. Come on, pink poo. I don't even know where to go with that. Let me see. Who else do we have? Cage on the inside says, sounds like demons to me. They love our energy. And that's what I was thinking, Cage on the inside, like energy vampires. And it's just, and we'll get back into this on after the break, but it's like, when you step into a new place for the first time, you're new. Everyone can tell that you're new. And most people are going to be cordial and inviting and have great intent, but there's going to be that small subset of individuals who are there to prey on you and can spot you a mile away, and then will swoop in for said interaction in order to achieve their goal. And it almost sounds like that's kind of what may, which with the potential there to take place in an astral space, especially when they're trying to get you to do their bidding, maybe in your physical existence. We're going to jump down another rabbit hole there because, it definitely is interesting. Make sure you guys get your questions in all caps too. I got a few of them so far. I know you guys got a long list of questions for the guests tonight. We get up some good ones. Let's add to the conversation and let's move the needle tonight, as we always do on the After Hours radio show. Brendan Ryan, new name. Thanks for coming on in tonight to the After Hours radio show. Let's see. Who else did I miss? Chris Dean, thanks for coming on in. Why I got your question, just so you know why I got you. Well, that explains everything. Jerry Carter is floating on the astral plane right now. Okay. Thanks for coming on in. I'll save that comment. Why I like that comment as well. I'll save that for later in the show. Let's see. Oh, that's what we can do. This is what we can do. We will be doing this every show. So let's do a call to action real quick. We got 2 minutes left before we come back from break. Let's take the next 30 seconds. Let's just stop commenting in the chat. Let's just take the next 30 seconds, look right under the screen, and hit either the thumbs up or thumbs down icon. Let us know that you like the show, or if you didn't like the show. We just need some sort of interaction there, so it tells YouTube, hey, show this to other people, because we are having definitely conversations here that move the needle. Very important to have, not just for us in the community, but for those that are just now coming around. There's going to be an influx of a lot of individuals once this really starts hitting the way that it's supposed to globally. We're going to have an influx of a lot of individuals coming in for the very first time having these sorts of conversations. So context is very important. Dumbing it down is very important. Not explaining your UFO jargon is very important, because there's a viewer with new names in the chat right now. This could be their very first time diving into this subject, right? So we want to make sure it's palatable and Also allows them to kind of expand on it after the show, just like we do in the after hours wrap up. So yeah, I'm always excited to have these conversations. I think they definitely help us get where we're trying to go. And who did I saw somebody out there because I saw my name. Skip to Malou. I see you out there, Skip to Malou. We got about and Polly Rotterman. Polly Rotterman as well in the building. Thanks for coming in, Polly. Deanna Ann. Thanks for coming on in. I have a sister that pretty much has the exact same name. Coinky Dink. 5 seconds before we come back from radio. And here we go. All right. That's the second crash. Not good. Not good. But let's resolve that real quick. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. We are on the back half of hour number 2, right here with our fantastic guest author, experiencer, astral traveler, Mike Martin, filling in some really big gaps, needed gaps in this conversation, definitely adding to the narrative. Miss any of the conversations tonight, you got to hop in the archives because it doesn't cost anything. It's free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And bring yourself up to speed as we go ahead and get ready to jump into the conversation here. So I wanted to touch on a couple things here because, so I was looking at that, like, as I explained to the audience during the break, like, it kind of just feels like from what I'm understanding, that we may not have full control or awareness of our purpose in the astral space. Like, why are we there? What are we there to experience? But it sounds like these interactions are these the purpose of us going into the astral space, is I guess what I'll ask.
What I like to say is the Earth is the prison planet and the astral is the prison yard. So when people are on Earth and you go through the suffering and all the other things that are happening, and then they finally get to the astral, they think, oh yeah, I finally escaped and I got, to somewhere free. Well, what they don't realize is what I call the subconscious is the enemy from within. The subconscious is within and without. It is basically it's an oversight for each individual as well as everything that occurs wherever. So what it does is it's kind of like the spider or whatever you call it, the puppet master, and it controls everything that goes along. So when people go on the astral, they think, oh, well, I get to see grandma or Aunt Sue and Jesus and all that. What you're doing is, whether it's a demon or it's an angel, they're the same being. All they do is just change the way they look for the specific situation. And like I said, they set up a production so that when people go there, whether they die or whatever, when they go there, you are there to witness the production. And so they are there to intimidate you. They are there to give you misinformation. And what I like to say is to anybody that would say, well, I don't think that's right. Let me pose this to you. Okay. With all the psychics and all of the spirit guides that we have all over the world, why isn't the world a better place? And let me ask you one simple question. If all these spirit guides were good, like people say they are, why, just in the United States every year, do we have 480,000 missing children? Just in the US every single year. Why does that happen? If we have a good oversight in the astral, or we have all these angels and all these spirit guides here to help us, then why do we have that? If you're going to protect anything in our species, the children would be the first line of what they would protect. And since they obviously don't care, there's obviously no oversight for it. That right there, and I'm not saying 4,000, I'm not saying 40, I'm saying 480,000 every year in one country. Now that has to make you really think how many are missing in every year throughout the whole world. That in itself speaks volumes, because when I tell people to question everything, question your reality, question what's going on. Now, if a missing child is not in your family or in within your people that you know, it's not going to make as big of a deal as if it was your child or somebody in your family. Now, if it affects us personally, then yeah, it becomes a much bigger deal in our life. But if we can't protect what is the weakest point of our whole society, the most fragile part of our society, people, then there's a real problem there. So that kind of puts in perspective. If you expand that to what's going on all around us. Now, I know a lot of people, they're going to say, well, that's not right, or this isn't right, and this isn't right. The only way you're going to find out if things are true or not is if you really look into it, because we have gotten so complacent in our lives. We just want to be in that comfort bubble that we've all created for ourselves. And we feel so, that is our place. We've set our own limitations, and we know what we want, and our wants and needs are all filled within that bubble. And that's where we want to live. Outside of that, we expect, whether it's representatives or whoever, we trust them to do their job for our own best interest. Well, you should know better than anybody that you're the only one that's going to look out for your own best interest, not a spirit guide or not a government official or anybody else. You're going to look out for your best interest, and they're going to look out for their own best interest. That's normal. That's how things work everywhere. So you have to put everything into perspective and get in control of your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, because you're an energy generator. You're a creator within your own right. People think that, I don't have any ability to do anything. Well, yeah, yes, you do. You have the ability to do a lot of things. But yet, when you're living in that bubble of limitations, you're not going to see that, and you're not going to experience anything until you expand that in order to be able to experience that.
Well said. And I totally agree with you there for sure. And that made me think about one of the titles of your book, and maybe you could kind of take this off somewhere. Leaving the illusion of life. Essentially, what are you saying there?
Well, leaving the illusion of life, the whole idea, the premise behind the book, it's even before I came up with this, what I call the solution, was leaving the illusion of your daily life. Because what we do is we focus on everything physical, whether it's work and then family, and you got your bills and your car insurance payments and drive to work and repairs and everything. You've got a trillion different things that you're responsible for. So you're running around here doing this, and you're in 50 different directions simultaneously. Your thoughts are all over the place. Your emotions are flying out off the handle. And when you do take a break, you look at TV, and it's all drama, and it just blows up everything for sensationalism. So here you are. What I'm saying is focus, pinpoint your focus, your perspective, because what's happening is your thoughts are all over the place. Some people can't go to sleep at night because they're just firing off all these things, because they can't get a grasp of what's around them. So they just let everything just fly. Their lives fly around like their thoughts, and their emotions are all over the place. And their feelings are, every time they experience something, they're just triggered to the max. It's like people are living in the fight or flight mode constantly. No control whatsoever, because you've allowed yourself, through all the programming that we receive every day, you've allowed yourself to fly off all the time, because you have no control. Yeah. If you're not controlling yourself, someone or something else is. If you can go to work one day and somebody says something that you really don't like, and you fly off the handle, guess what? You've just allowed that person to control you, whether you want to admit it or not. They just controlled you.
Yeah.
And you allowed it. Why did that happen? Because you're not in control. Because you're not lucid during the day. You can't recall everything that went on during your day. You're not paying attention, not focusing, because you're allowing all the outside distractions to just basically muddy the waters in your head. You're allowing that to just control your day, yourself, your life, your schedule. Get in control. You have to be in control. And what happened was, for a long time, once I experienced the fact that all this was going on around us, I said, there's got to be a way out of it. There has to be a solution to our problem, because you turn the news on, you turn social media on, there is nothing but a line of problems being listed. You're going to turn the news on and you're going to hear nothing but problems. People love to hear about problems. But guess what? Nobody's here to give us a solution. No, okay, well, we have a debt. We've got this debt. We've got all this and everything like that. Well, okay, so what's the answer? Well, nobody has an answer, but everybody wants to run around and tell us what all our problems are. Everybody already knows the problems. We know the problems. We need solutions. So I said, I need a solution. I posed the question. We are utilized for our energy. What can we do? What can we do to combat our situation? It took me a long time. I did get an answer. And the answer was very simple. And it seemed to be like, okay, well, what do I do with that? The answer was, instead of supplying the power, take back the energy. Take back the energy instead of giving it, but take it back. Well, what happens is, when I ask a question, I provide myself with data that surrounds it. So let me give you an example. I'm a technical person. So if I pose a question about something that I'm working on and I just can't find the answer for it, I'll pose the question, but I'll surround myself with data surrounding everything about what I'm asking a question about. So if I do get an answer, I'll understand the supportive evidence to help put that answer to work, to find a solution. So what I said was, okay, well, it's well known that a motor can either generate power as like a generator, or consume power as use in a motor. You just reverse it, So what's happening is, so here we are, we're generating power, but we can also absorb power. I know that because, as I mentioned earlier, is because you felt this rush of energy with the emotions and feelings. What I had to do was, over years, I spent time, okay, well, I can move this around. I could make this do things. Well, I don't know what it does, but I can make things happen with it. Well, what I realized is, well, as I expel, like through fear or whatever else, I feel it moving up. And then then I can move it in a different direction if I decide to absorb it. So I said, well, okay, now I've got an answer. How do I put it to use? Because I have a solution. Now I need a plan to plan how to do it. So I went through and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to utilize what I call the glimpse state, which is the daydream state. I'm going to use that and see if I can utilize that method and figure out how I'm going to do that. And I'll do it through the dream state, and I'll try 3 different ways to access another state of consciousness to utilize my thing. And my thought was, okay, well, I'll use something simple. Like, if you're going to take power from something, if you held a wire and put a wire to the other thing and absorb the power through the wire, or through a hose, or through a tube, or a tentacles, or whatever you want to do, because you're utilizing your mind to do this. You're not physically doing it. So what I did is I put myself in an altered state, and then I put myself in a scenario where I was near these other beings or creatures that I knew that were not on my side, and I began to absorb power from them in different ways in order for it to work. and it was successful in one state. So I said, okay, I want to make sure they were just leaving because I was doing this. It's because I want to make sure it was actually doing something. So I tried it in many different states, in many different instances, including creating my own production, non-physical production, to try for this to work. And it was successful. Once I did that, I wrote out the plan. I made videos on the solution on my YouTube page. And I produced that back in December when I got the answer and when I tested it out. And then a couple months later, I produced a video called The Plan, also on my channel. And I lay it out for people a little bit easier to understand how you can access these states. You don't have to always access these specific states. You can utilize visualization, because people, what they don't realize, most people, there are people out there that utilize the, access the astral, very good at meditation. Are able to access altered states. There are quite a few people that do that. So they put this into practice as well. But for the common person that doesn't do this on a regular basis, I lay out visualization techniques for people to be able to do this. And I try not to specify anything too focused, because I want people to utilize their imagination in this. And one thing happens is you start to exercise what I call the mental muscle. And that mental muscle allows you to do things that you thought were not possible, because now you're using things that you have never done. Because in our regular daily state, we're just supposed to go to work and think about this, and you do this. Don't think about anything internal. Don't try to find yourself. Don't try to find truth. That stuff doesn't really matter because it's non-physical. Don't worry about that, because we're being focused and funneled into staying within the daily game, is what I call it, the game of life. Get us away from what really matters and finding ourselves and finding more about ourselves. This creates an avenue for you to begin the realization of creation for yourself. And this gets us back to our roots, because when I tell people, I had to learn to walk and talk and everything when I was born physically, but yet the first time I went on the astral, I didn't have to learn how to use my third eye. I didn't have to learn how to utilize telepathy. I didn't have to learn how to fly. I didn't have to learn how to do any of that stuff. It was second nature. So that it tells you right there, that's second nature for us. That's our normal place. Being stuck in a body in a physical plane, that's not normal, because we have to start from the beginning every time. So it's not a natural thing. We are conscious energy. We're not a body. We're not a soul. And we're not a spirit, and we're definitely not the subconsciousness. So all those are basically a four-piece prison that keeps us within this system. We're a conscious energy that doesn't need any of that, but we're in this system, and there is a way out, but we just have to work for it.
Wow, that is awesome. And as we're running up against the end of the show, we had some audience questions. Would you mind coming after the break, maybe for 10 minutes, to answer those questions, like rapid fire? Okay. And I just had a couple questions as well. So, and you kind of went there a little bit there, but I wanted to know, like, what did you, in your mind, knowing what you know, experiencing what you've experienced, what do you think humanity's purpose is for our physical existence? What do you think our long-term goal is as human beings?
Well, human beings is just basically we're in a system of recycling. Where you start over every time. I mean, we're conscious energy. We don't need a body. Okay, and it's proof to where when I go through these experiences, I'm not attached to this body. I'm there. There's nothing going on in my mind other than the present. I don't have any of the issues related to the physical. There's no speed of light. There's no space time. There's nothing. I experience things as they would be as if I wasn't with a body, even though I'm still attached, but I'm not physically with it. And I come back, and I'm obviously back in the same space. But the thing is, when you've experienced something outside of the physical, then you begin to realize where our reality is. what we really are, what we're really capable of. So this is just a facade. This is when I tell people, this is the car. This is the car. We're the driver. We're the driver on the inside. This is not us.
Yeah.
This is just what we identify as. But we're not the car. We're the driver.
Yeah, the vehicle essentially. Yeah. I like that. And also, do you think, as far as, because obviously you come across these beings in the astral plane, or do you feel that everything exists there? So cryptids, extraterrestrials, or do you think we're having a mix of physical extraterrestrials coming through space from another planet? So I guess I'll have you answer that first.
Well, I mean, there's the astral and there's beyond other dimensions and there's alternate realities. They're in different places, even though I said they're in the same place because they're stacked on each other. But what I say to people is, like with the UFOs and stuff like that. Okay, so our visual spectrum is very narrow. Our physical visual spectrum is very narrow. Anything outside of that visual spectrum is going to seem like it's somewhere else. So what happens is, and this is how I believe a lot of these things come in and out of our viewing, because they can go beyond our visual spectrum. So there could be, so we can't see it. There could be UFOs flying all over the place, and they say, okay, hey, we're just gonna become visible within that spectrum for, I don't know, a couple minutes, show off, and then we're gonna leave this visual spectrum, because they have the ability to work within different realms. So it's not that they're going anywhere. It's just that we can't see them. Doesn't mean they're not there. There's stuff on the astral right around us right now, but you just can't see it. So when these things supposedly disappear, or they're not utilizing, don't necessarily have to utilize a portal, just go in and out of our visual spectrum. So, and that's why a lot of times people go, like if you're on the astral or something, or if you're utilizing your third eye, it doesn't always have to be on the astral. You can see things that are far beyond what we see here, because it's the spectrum is so much wider. But like I said, our narrow band of visual spectrum is super narrow. So there's more going on around us that we don't see than what we really see.
Awesome. And I think the same way too. I know everybody here has heard me say exactly what you just said. So it's cool to hear someone also feel the same way. And then, another thing that I was thinking about as well was the so when we're in this astral space and we're in this other location, wherever this may be, and we're a part of this being's reality, or maybe they're in the astral plane too with us, but it feels like it makes sense that as you talked about earlier with being lucid in the waking world, and then transferring that into the astral world. Is that what helps us maybe see into these other dimensions? Like, does that open up our ability to actually travel to these other dimensions? Like, is that something that we could actively use?
Yeah, questioning reality is the first kind of step that I would really recommend. By, okay, where am I? And then becoming consciously aware of what's going on around you at all times. So if there's a shift or if there's any change, you're going to pick it up. But if you're just kind of like in the fog all the time, there's things happening around you and you're not going to pick them up, because some people say they're very sensitive. They know something's going on. Most of the time it's because they've trained themselves, because they're so sensitive, because they're always so aware of what's going on around them. So what happens is, so if you're used to being in a fight or flight situation, where you're constantly under pressure, you might miss something. Good.
Hold it right there. We're actually 10 seconds to go to the break. With Mike Martin here, man. I like the guy, man. He's right on the level, just as I figured he would be, and we're having an awesome conversation. We'll be back answering your questions right after this break.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we're clear. Great stuff. We'll off camera for the next 5 minutes. So I'll see you back here.
Okay.
right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. And we're back with our guest, Mike Martin, answering your questions right here, right now. Coming back from radio right here in about 10 seconds, guys. About 5 seconds, guys. Let's get ready to go. Oh, Jesus. Third crash of the night. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're in the third and final hour. Mike Martin is going into overtime with us, answering your questions. Awesome hour 1 and 2, guys. Man, I'm telling you, if you missed it, hop in the archive. Absolutely free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You will not be sorry that you did so. As we get ready to jump into this, we'll get into Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up in a moment as we jump right on into your questions. So let me go ahead and pick the first one here. We had Mike Jones, who asks, does driving your car and then realizing you are awake and not dreaming have any meaning?
Yeah, it means you're awake. I mean, that's what I was trying to get to within the whole daydreaming state. What's happening is, if you realize you're awake, then you're fully lucid and you're within the moment. Because as I've said, our idea of time is skewed because we don't know any different. But when you're in the present, that means you're fully lucid within that moment. And so, yeah, I wouldn't recommend daydreaming while you're driving, because I got to the point where I had to physically stop myself from doing that, because I would drift so easily away that it was becoming a habit, and I couldn't make that a habit. I had to physically stop. Every time, if I'm driving, I have to stop any drift of thought or anything. I have to stay perfectly focused on what it is. A lot of time I'll listen to music, but even when you listen to music, a lot of times you still have that tendency to drift. I had to stop that completely. I have to stay within that time, because if I don't stay within that moment, then I don't know how far I could drift off, and I don't want to take the chance.
Awesome. And Seymour Glass is asking, so the guest agrees space-time is emergent and not fundamental?
Space-time is, well, I really don't say space-time, because when you're not here, there is no time. Time just doesn't exist. There is only the present. So there is only the present. That's it. That's all there is. Okay. When you talk about space, there really isn't any. The only space there is where you are occupied at that moment. And like I said, you could go from one what we would call place from A to B is like this. A to B are in the same space. So there is no space and there is no time. The only time is the present. So, and it's really hard to explain, because I'm using English language, or I'm using language with only so many words. But if you were to experience that, then you would understand the concept. And what I tell people is, you can't understand what you haven't experienced. And you can't unexperience what you can't unlearn something that you've already experienced. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Once you've seen it already, you might be able to try to explain it, but it doesn't work out that way. But if you've never experienced it, even if I gave you the exact words, you still wouldn't understand it, because you haven't experienced it. So I tell people, the only way you're going to really know the value of something is through experience. That's the only way you're going to really know that it's true or not. I could tell you all day long it's true, but that doesn't mean, like when I heard about out-of-body experiences, I could not believe it. I could not truly believe it until I experienced it for myself, because there's no explanation for it.
All right. And then Cage on the inside's asking, so what is the educational value of this and what does it do for you?
The educational value is I've experienced things that a lot of people probably never will. I mean, not knowingly ever will. And I've learned things that at first that was my first question. Now that I've got this information, because that's why I documented everything, what value is it going to hold for somebody else? I mean, what can I offer somebody else for of value? That's why I went through a long, probably a year long process of questioning everything before I would even write my first word on a book or make my first video. Okay. Then once I decided this is the content, because I'm going to share this because this is what I've discovered. Okay. Now people can either utilize it or not. What does it do for me? When I help you, it also helps me. When I better myself, I help you as well. So as we work on ourselves and make ourselves better, because we have to be here every day. We have to be here on Earth every day. We still have to endure everything that's going on. So if I get in control of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and get in control of myself and learn more and share that information, that helps you. When you better yourself, that helps me and everybody else. So what we're doing is we're helping each other out. And then when I created the solution, when I came out with the solution and the plan, it allows people to get back into control themselves. You don't want to be the prey anymore. Well, the plan and the solution that I came up with, it reverses the predator-prey scenario. So do you want to be the prey or do you want to be the predator? You can decide now. You can decide if you want to be on top, or you can decide if you still want to live on your knees. And that's what it's come down to. So I have offered it to you, and everybody who works on it, works with it, is helping me, and it's helping everybody else as well. We're here to help ourselves, but we have to work together to do that.
And I'll take that a little bit further because I'm a solutions guy too. And the reason why we do the show is to move the needle towards the answers that we are all looking for. And so that's exactly the reason why I was like, yeah, we got to get Mike on this show, was to have this conversation. And uniquely, I think for anyone out there who is versed in this subject, knows that there are a lot of holes. We're putting the puzzle together, but there's still holes. And then you come across conversations with individuals, could be at a bar, could be here on the show in the chat, where now some of those holes that you couldn't fill before are being filled, and it's making sense. And that's beautiful, because that means that's progress. And so it's about helping each other. I always say everybody has a part to do in this, in whether big or small, and it's just an example of that. So I had to add that to that.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead.
I talk to a lot of people. I try to talk to as many people as I can, because most people in these circumstances don't have anybody else to talk to, because there's not a lot of people that talk about most of these subjects. So when people get the opportunity to speak to somebody, and it's great because from other people's experiences, I can gain information, as well as them gaining information from my experiences. We share with each other. And there are sometimes the pieces of the puzzle that are able to help us both, help within that process. So, and the more people who work on a solution or work on the solution come up with more ideas. So the more heads you get together, the more opportunities you have for success and for more ideas.
Yep, beautiful circle. I love it. Super Crazy Movie Geek is asking, are there malevolent beings on the other side of these portals that we should be worried about?
Well, like I said, I mean, I would, from my own experiences, the dream state is where I've experienced the malevolent ones, and they're connected with the astral. Obviously, they can come into any state. You don't have to be through a portal or anything else. I've never, okay, so over 35 years with portals, experiences. I've never had any experiences that were negative through the portals. Never had anything that was threatening or anything of that nature. Like I said, at some point, there's a hierarchy far and above oversight on some of this stuff, so that there aren't interactions in between probably undesirable places or here or whatever. I don't know what those rules are. The more that I learn, the more that I realize I don't know. So it's almost like, I think I've raised myself up higher, and I've actually moved down 50 levels because I thought I was here and I'm way down there. So it's a process. And let me give you an example too. I'll try to keep this short. I realized that through another conversation with another person recently that, when you think about things more, when you're talking to people in a conversation, and I pick up things even in my own experiences. Now, there are multiple layers of things that happen, even when you're outside of your physical, that create the ability to telepathically communicate with other beings, because you don't think they understand English, and I know that I don't understand their language. So how does this instantaneous communication occurring? There has to be some sort of I don't know, of insight in between it to have that work. So there's so many things that we don't think about. I mean, telepathy seems simple, but if you get into the nuts and bolts of it, there has to be an intricate system set up in order for it to work. So, man, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, me as well. There's so much, so far to go with that. J True Seeker is asking, have you ever used flying dreams to accelerate out into space to become a lucid and wake astronaut?
I usually don't deal with traveling as much I usually use the lucid dreams for access to the portals and that sort of thing. But most of the time, like when you talk about space, it's not existent in anything. In the places that I go, let me give you an example. There are two-dimensional worlds that exist. The two-dimensional worlds. It looks maybe like a picture, but there are moving images within that picture, layered moving images, but it's completely flat. That's how their whole entire world is. I had no idea stuff like that existed. Or there are things, but I don't usually go see space, because space doesn't like the space when we look into the stars, that doesn't exist around where I go. Different dimensions or alternate realities. I've never seen that. And I try not to go to, I don't go to other planets because I'm not even sure where I'm at that they even would have different planets, because we see things outside of out of the world as space and different planets and stuff. This is a completely different format. This is not even this is, yeah. I mean, when you have non-physical beings that create physicality for you to communicate with them, they're going to create a production. But that's only false. If you were to see what it really looked like, it might look like nothing. So you're seeing the portrayal of a lot of things. But when you see the reality of it, it doesn't look anything like that you would expect it to look like, because you can't compare it to here. This is rudimentary, very, very simple compared to what's out there. This is super simple.
All right. We got YY asking, so how do we know lucid dreaming has any merit if it can all be manipulated?
Well, when you're lucid in your dream, and the dreams you can manipulate your dreams within there, but the whole thing about it is being lucid. And like I said, when you're into these situations, the only way you're going to know what's going on is if you're lucid, but you have to visit it over and over to see the reality of what's really going on. I mean, I can't just give you a 10-second answer for something that could take you years. I mean, it's easy to just see something on the surface and accept it for what it looks like and go on, because we're so used to, that's a cool car because I like the paint job or whatever. You see something in the physical, and you can pretty much judge it based upon looks and feel and how it drives or whatever. But when you're dealing with the non-physical, it's on a whole different level. You can't use your judgmental properties from the physical and put that on the spiritual or on the non-physical. It doesn't work that way. There's no comparison.
All right. And we have Polly Rotterman all the way from Israel asking, can astral traveling be considered as direct contact related to aliens in order to grow consciousness?
I mean, astral traveling is you're just in a spirit body based on, it's like a non-physical body on the astral plane. I don't know. I think there's only 13 levels to the astral planes. So, I mean, it's relatively, it's still confined. Just like the physical earth, you can only go so far on that as well as this. So when people tend to think outside of the earth, they just think of the astral. Well, the astral is just a small part. It's a small part. There's so much more out there. I don't most of the time concern myself with the astral. I concern myself with beyond that. Because the astral is, like I said, that's the prison yard, and that's going to be under full control. It's going to be under full control of the system. People call it the matrix, they call it whatever they want to call it, but it's still within our confinement system. But I go far outside of that. Most people aren't aware of that it does exist, but different realities are different dimensions and alternate realities are outside of that. So when people say, "Oh," they tend to think that's the do all or be all, but it's not. The astral is not.
All right. We have Cielo Azul, who is saying, why do I feel more alive in my dreams than in real life? Says, so happy in them that I don't want to wake up.
Well, it's more towards your natural state. You don't have a physical body. You don't get hungry. You don't get thirsty. You don't need to have cooling or heating. You think about all the baggage that you leave when you're not in the physical. You don't have bills. You don't have rent. You don't have work. You don't have any of that stuff. So we think when we go there, that's paradise, because compared to here, oh yeah, it is. But it's still not our normal place, because we don't need a body, but we're strapped to it. It's just replacing one for another. So I mean, it's like trading in. Instead of being in your car, you're now in a glider or a plane. That's the difference. You're still in a vehicle at some point, and that's where you're at. So you do feel lighter and better and stuff, because you don't have all the problems or the issues as you do in the physical, but that's still not your natural state.
All right. And these were related to the driving conversation earlier. We got Amy WC saying, driving for too long hypnotizes me. Do you think that is related to your experiences?
Well, I mean, you get bored. I mean, if you have a monotonous job where you're putting together widgets all day, and eventually you're just going to kind of veer off into the distant daydream, and your body's just going to still do the job. Your subconscious takes over. It's what I talk about, not being lucid or aware or awake in your normal daily life, because you're allowing the subconsciousness to take over, and because subconsciousness is can handle your bodily functions and get things moving for certain things. And that's what people do. They're so used to just allowing it to take over. Well, why would you allow somebody else? Why would you allow something else to take over? I mean, that's part of the whole thing. You're allowing it to take over at night. Now you're allowing it to take over during your day. Eventually, are you even going to be there?
Right. And Candace ends it off pretty simple here. Do you feel like a conscious sleeper?
It's kind of hard to be a conscious sleeper in the way things work, because I have mentally stayed awake while my body sleeps, and I'll tell you right now, it's like being in a prison. It's the most boring thing you can experience, because you want to sit there and listen to yourself snore or breathe all night long? And I guarantee you, if your body's sleeping, your consciousness is awake, you're going to know every waking minute that happens. Tried it several times and it's very boring. So the best that I can try to do, or what I do, is to try to make sure that I try to keep my consciousness awake within that hypnagogic or dream state. If I can get my consciousness awake for that, rather than just being awake while I'm sleeping, you have to be able to dial yourself in to get to the right state. And then even then, trying to stay aware all night, that's beyond most people's capabilities to do that, or it's beyond most what people are willing to do. So you try to stay aware of your dreams, become cognizant what's going on, and if you can, astral project, just so you're in control, or control your dreams, or there's different ways you can do it. But just you try to do the best as you can during your sleeping state, and then try to stay fully lucid within your awakened state and get in control of yourself.
Awesome stuff, Mike Martin. You've been great tonight, man. I really love your views. I think very important the things you're saying here. I definitely see places where you've answered some things that I've thought about, that I just pondered, and makes sense. I can drop that into that space, and it makes a lot of sense. So this is just laying the groundwork tonight for future conversation. So I'd love to have you back, Mike. And
great.
Let's take it to the next level. So let's stay in touch. Outside of that, thank you for staying late as well and answering audience questions. And all your links are in the chat, but could you tell everyone where they could find you at?
Yeah, my YouTube page is My Dark Explorations. My books are on Amazon Kindle, which is My Dark Explorations, and then also The Spiritualist Manifesto, A Guide to Freedom, and then Leaving the Illusion of Life. And you can pretty much find most everything on my YouTube page. And if you have questions or comments, and also my emails on YouTube. So if you don't want to, put anything out publicly, you can go ahead and email me, and I will answer. I'm one of the few people that I believe that does with this, and will answer just about every comment and every email, just because I know how it is to be on the other end of it.
That is awesome stuff, man. Keep doing humanity's work is what you're doing. Keep taking on and being selfless and doing what you're doing to get to answer questions. I know you've helped a lot of people out here tonight. Great conversation. I'll be reaching out to you soon. Mike, have a great rest of your night. Thanks for coming in.
You too. Thank you.
All right, Mike. Take care.
Bye.
All right. All right, guys, that was Mike Martin. As we get ready to run into the break here, and it just gives me a couple moments to kind of say stuff. First of all, do appreciate you, T-Bone, and as well, Amy WC. You guys are awesome. Thanks for supporting the show here and supporting awesome conversations, right? Once again, when you leave, when you come in with the thirst to have questions answered. Even if they don't get answered, having those conversations that move the needle, at the very least, provides a more clear picture of what it is we're trying to figure out. No one knows the answers, right? But when we spitball, I heard a lot of great perspectives from our guests here tonight that made a lot of sense. And I've always said that I think our God-given common sense, the superpower that we have called logic and common sense, will actually answer a lot of the questions that we have, right? Academia has no place in figuring out where we need to go as human beings and answers to life's questions. So once again, awesome stuff. Glad to be able to do that tonight. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to go into our final break of the night and get with our guy, Drew Banke, with the After Hours wrap up. You guys don't go anywhere. It's been an awesome show. We'll be right back right after this break. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. All right, we are clear, and I definitely want to be clear when I say thank you, Richard Minnick, for your awesome support tonight. Awesome super chat, as well as T-Bone saying thank you, Mike and Mr. Rob G. Thank you, T-Bone, for your support of Space Star Radio. Your love and support, because I know you guys love and support the show. As well as Amy WC out there, appreciate you. And Fast Himmy, you know what I mean? Thanks for supporting the show here tonight. Conversation move the needle. That's what we're going to do, right? Let me go ahead and bring in our guy early, Drew. Well, kind of late, but early as well. Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Stepping right on in. Drew Banky style. What's going on, man? How you been?
Good, man. Just listen to the guests.
Yeah. We can get into that right after this break, man. Anything else going on outside of the wrap-up stuff?
Just getting ready for got an inspection VA for the VA home loan. The buyer that's buying the house is doing a VA home loan. So we've been getting ready for that inspection coming up. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday on the 11th, whatever that is. 11/11 is the appointment. So
At 11/11.
well, yeah, it's June 11th at 11.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, 11/11, November 11th. Wait a minute.
No,
Okay,
it's
that
11.
makes more sense.
It's the 11th at 11 a.m. So
That is awesome, man. Awesome. Glad to see motion. It's a lot of things. There's movement. Even if you can't really see it or recognize it, there's definitely movement, and it's beautiful, Drew. It's beautiful. I think things are gonna start doing the dance and dropping into place, right?
sure, yeah. I mean, as above, so below. I mean, you go by that theory. You know, everything's changing, and if you look at, we're going through big changes right now, and man, it's not for the faint of heart selling a house and buying a house at the same time. It is not for the faint of heart. And then dealing with two toddlers is just on top of that. But it's all good things, man. It's all good problems to have. I will say that. So it's all good problems to have.
You forgot to say 2 toddlers and a baby goat.
2 baby goats.
Well, 2 baby goats.
Yeah, we had so both of our goats gave birth. We had 6 total, and we only was able to keep 2 of them.
And also, they obviously have a place to be at this new spot. Is it set up the same way where it's like open?
No, it's closer to the mountain and be less wind and all that. But it's already set up for animals. It's already I'm gonna have to go down there and check fences and do some tweaks and everything. But there was already goats raised there. There's already chickens raised there.
That is awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah. Congrats. Drew is a grandpa.
What about those pics I sent to you, bro?
Let me bring them up. I haven't
TR3B.
Oh, jeez. Let's save that one for tomorrow. That was you caught that just with the man, dude.
That was after last weekend, after Sunday's podcast. When I told you I was going to go outside and take pictures of the aurora, I was out there till about 2 a.m. and I kept snapping pictures of the mountain because I wanted to catch the aurora right as it was happening. You can see it in southern Colorado when it's peaking with your naked eye, but you can catch it ahead of time if you're taking pictures on a camera. So what I wanted to catch is Mount Blanca glowing. And that's because I've seen the aurora here before, and the very first few minutes of it, it looks like the mountain's glowing. So I kept trying to catch that. Like every 5 minutes, I'd take a picture, and one of those times, I took a picture and looked at it, and bold triangle craft coming out of a cloud, and I went to snap another picture, and it was gone.
And we will keep you on the edge of your seats for that one. Come back tomorrow so you can see that picture. Awesome. I've seen it and I was like, whoa, that's all I put. Whoa. We got about 10 seconds left. Just nod real quick to this here.
It's a good one.
Okay, here we go. Oh boy, that's the fourth crash tonight. It's just been that kind of night, but that's okay because you can't stop the conversation. So while we're getting that back up, Seymour Glass wanted to know, and just you can answer this real quick before we come back on. Was saying, does Drew have the Benjamin Button syndrome going on, or is it just a new haircut?
Just a new haircut. No, if you look at the side, man, you see some salt coming in. Salt coming in the beard and on the sides. So
it's all good, man. I mean, it's wisdom. That's wisdom. As we get ready to come right back on into the show right about now. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. After Hour 2.5, we're on the back half of hour number 3 already. Fantastic guest tonight, Mike Martin, filling in holes, man. Having conversations that move the needle. That's what we do. That's what we did tonight. If you missed any of it, make sure you hop in the archive. I keep telling you, it's for the free ski, free 99, absolutely free at youtube.com. As we go ahead and get ready to jump right on into the conversation with Drew Banky. It's trying to send us home, and we're not going to do that.
You're an irredeemable monster!
there it is.
Yeah,
There it is.
Yeah, get in my belly.
Get down in the north! Get down north! Go it! Wolfman's got north! You're a monster!
All right, everybody. It is time for the After Hours wrap up with Drew Banky. Ran a little late, bro. We had, questions for the audience. Do appreciate your patience, man, back there. What did you think? I can't even say anything yet. What did you think about the conversation tonight? Did you pick anything out, or how'd you feel?
Dreamers, man. That's dreams has how it's always happened, like throughout time. That's how knowledge gets passed forward when it gets lost. Like if it gets lost at the end of a generation, it will come back in dreams. It's been talked about in time, throughout time, over and over again. We talked about here on the show how important dreamers are. So anyone that's out there and exploring their dream space and expanding it, I give the hats out to. Do I agree with everything you said? Obviously not. Like I'm team positive on the other side of outside of humanity. I'm team positive.
Mm-hmm.
And there, he brought up some compelling points, but but the dream space is something we need to explore more in these days. And I seen someone bring up Monroe Institute was mentioned in the chat. I seen, but things like that, these things are becoming more and more popular. These institutions that are teaching people how to reconnect with their dreams, and ultimately what it's about trusting your dreams, because we all have dreams, but then we wake up and say, oh, it's just a dream. That what's the cliche thing to say? It's just a dream. But a dream is just a dream until it becomes a precognition dream that, quote unquote deja vu. All these terms are made up to sway us away from the truth of dreams. And because once you have a dream that manifests out in the physical, that is a bona fide manifest from your dreams out into the physical, then you can start trusting the dream. So I'm a big explorer in my dreams. I take my dreams very seriously, and I think the guest was great. Exploring it is something we need to talk about more. Exploring the dream space is something we need to talk about more, because you don't need You don't need psychedelics or anything to do it. So it's great.
And you're
It's a good guess.
absolutely right, Drew. Well said, man. Well said. And you gotta wonder. I mean, why do we dream? Right? Let's just start there. Why do we dream? No one can answer the question. We just know we go to sleep. Sometimes we dream, sometimes we don't, or we don't remember. But why? What's actually happening during that time? Why? When your body could just use the complete rest without having to work while it's asleep, then why is the purpose? What is the purpose of dreams? What are they really? And I think, as we talk more and more and we hear even people on the national level try to take this interdimensional turn, and then you have to look at the interdimensionality of it and then compare that to what you experienced during astral travel, which is why I asked the guests, because it's literally, if you can harness that ability, you potentially, and this could be right or wrong, we don't know yet, but you could potentially be controlling your ability to step into this other realm or dimension during your astral travel time, which could explain the same thing that we get when we have these experiences with something that's from another dimension. It's I think it's going down the right path if we're to believe that this whole experience we're having may be interdimensional. Then I think the astral plane and the astral realm and that whole idea, lucid dreaming, is the perfect route to go to try to get some answers on that. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, everybody has their own ideas about what the astral is, but I think what the guest was talking about, Mike, right? Was his name was Mike, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Mike was talking about what I got from it, and just from my own experiences, I think anything that has a name or words attached to it, I think there's something outside of that. So I think there's when you get to the outside of the astral, that stuff has no name, and that's getting into the cosmic flow of the universe, like the chi of the universe that's always there. And I think what I took from what he was saying is wherever there's a name on something or words construct, it's in some type of a box. You heard him say that, okay, the astral has 13 dimensional spaces. Well, really, creation, the actual creation of sources, energy, and universe is outside of words. And he was kind of trying to express that before. That's kind of hard to explain these things because a lot of these things you don't have words or explanations for. But as far as the dream space, like the ceremonial space or vision space, and the physical space being connected, I can't share the specific story that cemented that to me. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, but I was shown to know on certain terms as a lesson from the spirits as part of my process going through this process years ago of the undeniable connection of the dream space, the ceremony or / vision space, and the physical space, all connected. And there's much more connection in that, but that I can tell you on no uncertain terms for me is 100% solid truth.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And man, it turned out exactly the way that I thought it would, conversation wise, and his points were just so fringe and so new to the conversation. I never heard these perspectives before, and they just made a lot of sense. I mean, and that's how and that's what we always talk about, historical data and always having that, because something you're dealing with in the current or the future, if we want to go down the time route, we can do that. But it just, if you're able to weigh what you're experiencing against the data, then it shows. And he fit a lot of pockets, and I don't think he purposely went out to answer, to fill those pockets with information. He did research on his own, and it just so happens in conversation that he making a lot of sense on some things. And I think they could potentially fit in some of these spaces where we're missing some things. So, and I think everyone can agree with that, right? Because at the end of the day, no one knows the answer. And as we figure it out using logic and common sense, and then being able to have a ding moment, that's kind of what I think happened tonight. I felt like it did. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far with it, but I really felt value in some of the nuggets, right? Just like you said, I don't agree with everything, but they're and that's why I always say when you look at a nothing burger, if that's what you're going to consider a nothing burger, there's always going to be nuggets. There's always going to be things that are relevant to the conversation and kind of put those.
I don't believe in nothing burgers. I don't believe, if someone's taking the time to formulate like their thoughts, like sharing their, like what we always say, everybody's experience is valuable. So we want to hear it all. Like, even if whatever category you put it into, that's your own, that's your own self-reflection, really what's in yourself, your own self-doubt or being jealous of a story or this or that. Like, just try to listen to people's experiences from open mind, like, and feel what feels right to you, and pull those phrases or comments out, the ones that feel good, and leave the ones that don't. Like, each and every one of us are gonna have things that feel different. I know there was certain points where we had different opinions on things that he said, different feelings. And that's exactly why we have a great show, because we have difference of opinions. But that's across the board, and that's what makes us beautiful as beings. We all have different inputs, we all have different thoughts from different experiences, from different viewpoints. And when we have a guest come in here and sit down, I don't think there's ever a nothing burger. I don't think there's ever a nothing burger, especially like people that's sincerely telling their stories. Like, everything that he said, he sincerely believes it, and I respect that. Just as everything that I've been through, I sincerely believe. Like, I sincerely believe my truths, and things that are my truths are my truths, and things that I'm still have theories on are my theories. And goes on down the list to ideas and just thoughts. But we need to respect we need to respect each other, because the breath is sacred. Getting back to the rawness of it, the breath is sacred. And if we're manipulating our breath to form words or thoughts to convey, or words to convey thoughts, then that needs to be honored. And so I don't think there's any nothing burgers.
And
that's a long-winded say there's no nothing burgers.
Yeah, to everybody's experience is valid. No, and that's how we feel here. It's just essentially in responding, because I saw someone in the audience earlier who stated, oh well, I'm like, okay, so let's just kind of just take what's of value to you from that conversation, or the way that you perceived it. And that's why I wanted to back him up on that, because I think that just me being a middle of the road person and looking for answers, like, it could be anyone could step forward and give a theory, and it could be anyone. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. What you just said is completely awesome, and it fits and it makes sense. And that's the goal when we sit down to have these conversations, to walk away with more than you came into the conversation with. I think that served its purpose tonight. Mike was great. Can't wait to have him back, because obviously this is the groundwork conversation, and it's fun from here, right? Now we have so many different places we can go next time we have him on. So we're going to continue to do this, as well as having the guests that you guys want on the show as well. So I definitely want to take the time to let you know I'll be putting up a post in the Spaced Out Radio's Facebook area. So whether you're listening on radio or you're out in YouTube world, make sure you visit the page, because we want to make sure. So if you see someone and you say, you know what, that person would have an awesome conversation, let me go ahead and recommend that name. Make it along those lines with that at heart, right? It's got to be a great conversation, something that moves the needle. And I'd love to hear who you think would be a person that fits that bill. So please check later on tonight on the Space Out Radio Facebook feed and put in your request, and that's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and get who you want. Got a lot of great guests on the horizon as well, just so you guys know. It's going to get pretty interesting right around here, and I don't know, man. Hopefully we get some big news or something in the UFO world that happens that kind of shakes things up, because that'll be the cherry on the cake for me. I'm already feeling good about the year, where a lot of people are kind of feeling like nothing has happened, but I'm still feeling optimistic and in a good space, and it's just a great place to be. I'm just feeling real good about what we're doing.
Yeah, man. So there is some stuff that's interesting that's happening. I don't know if it's UFO related. I have a hunch. But Kash Patel, the acting FBI director, was on Rogan recently, and I think just the other day or today the interview was released, I think. But he was talking about when he took the office at the FBI director, he found a secret room that is full of hard drives, it's full of files and all types of stuff, and they're going through it right now. So it's hard to trust the government. Who knows, this and that. Yeah, I get it, but that's some interesting stuff. Like, I would have to think, if it's a closed off room that no one's ever known about in the Hoover building, the FBI headquarters in Washington, there's a secret room they found with files, and this is a direct quote, so I'm not adding anything on. With files and hard drives, they found a whole room, a sealed room, a hidden room in the FBI building. So I would have to think that some of those files have to have UFO files in, right?
Hopefully.
It has to.
I'm hoping they got to be somewhere, right? We know someone's collecting.
I'm sure there's Epstein files and everything else in there. Yeah. Blah, blah.
You went there. You went there.
But I want to see the UFO files. Man.
Here's what I will say. Since you said that, I didn't say it. You said it. Elon Musk stepping away from the government is a great idea, and maybe that whole thing leads to some information coming out. I don't know. I don't want to get political, but what we will do is go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and jump into a quick news segment before we end the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
UFO and weird news of the week. Stop what you're doing and listen to what we have to say here. Sounds like scientists discover super Earth planet that could provide answer for finding extraterrestrial life. When it's here already, guys, just quit looking past the extraterrestrials that are right here in our sky to look at some planet billions of miles away. They're here right now. So without that, okay, let me get in the story. The alien debate could be turning a corner as scientists have just made quite the interesting discovery. It turns out that us humans might not be the only ones calling the universe home after all. As boffins have just found another potentially habitable planet out among the stars, dubbed Kepler 725c. This planet might prove to be the breakthrough which extraterrestrial fans have been waiting for. Researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences found the super Earth planet sitting around 2,400 light years away. For those who don't know, super Earths are a class of planets which are bigger than Earth, yet lighter than the likes of Neptune and Uranus. According to NASA, they can be made of gas, rock, or a combination of both, while they are also usually between twice the size of Earth and up to 10 times its mass. Despite the name suggesting that it's a superior version of our world, it's simply a reference to its size. The U.S. Space Agency explains the true nature of these planets remains shrouded in uncertainty because we have nothing like them in our own solar system, and yet they are common among planets found so far in our galaxy. Quote, we do not yet know enough about these planets to tell what point they might lose a rocky surface. but in the range of 3 to 10 times the mass of Earth, there might be a wide variety of planetary compositions, including water worlds, snowball planets, or planets that, like Neptune, are composed largely of dense gas. So now we've gotten that out of the way, let's get on to what the experts in China have just found. The BOF has located Kepler 725c in a habitable zone, meaning that the planet is at a distance from a star where favorable conditions can take hold. Essentially, it's not too hot or too cold for liquid water to exist on its surface, which is very intriguing, as we all know that H2O is a crucial ingredient when it comes to sustaining life. Kepler 725c is also believed to have a rocky surface, just like Earth has, meaning theoretically it could have an ocean and land. As well as this, it orbits its host star in approximately 207.5 days, which isn't that far off how long it takes us to get around the sun, but still, it's a shorter year than what we have. The star Kepler 725c orbits is only 1.6 billion years old, so it's significantly younger than the ball of fire, which gives us heat and light, which is 3 billion years its senior. The information all supports the idea that Kepler 725c could in fact be habitable, but don't get too excited, as nothing has been confirmed yet. The authors of the study explain a super Earth located in the habitable zone of a sun-like star suggests a possibility of carbon-based life similar to that on Earth. It is situated at a distance nearly equivalent to 160 million times the distance from the Earth to the sun. Kepler 725c might equally be a volatile-dominated water world. To make things even more interesting, the research team has made this discovery in a new technique, which is known as transit timing variation, or TTV. TTV detects fluctuations in a planet's transit times, and experts ended up spotting Kepler 725c because they picked up on the strange timing of another planet's orbit, which was likely caused by the gravity of the super Earth. The discovery demonstrates that the transit timing variation method enables the detection and accurate mass measurement of a super Earth mini Neptune within a solar-like star's habitable zone. The researchers add, "You never know, lads. There might be a load of aliens giving us away from Kepler 725c as we speak. Or they might be right here, right now," which they probably are, which they definitely are. And let's just look closer to home. That being said, definitely want to thank our guest tonight, Mike Martin. Awesome conversation. Got to have him back. He says he'll be back, so we'll book him. Also want to thank Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. We'll also want to thank whoever wrote the story from the news tonight. I didn't even shout them out. We also want to say thank you to the man that you hear right there, Ron Bumblefoot Dog. He's the man that rocks out each and every weekend, teaching us to never say never again. Because yes, the phenomenon is real, which means anything and everything that we talk about underneath that is definitely possible. So with that being said, if you love the show tonight, make sure you throw your horns up. Also hit that like button and subscribe if you don't mind. As we get ready to wrap this thing up, thank you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, Drew Banky?
We own the night.
We own the night. This show is copyrighted SOR Media Business Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It has been a pleasure serving you as your host tonight. I'm Mr. Rob G. That's Drew Banky. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, hey, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe as we go off air for the night, we're going to be right back here doing the same thing again and again and again. Same time, same place. Hope to see you back here. Thanks for your time tonight, guys. It was awesome. See you back soon. Take care. Clear. Clear. All right, let me fill out the stuff real quick, man. Before we get
Polly, I saw your question. I don't know what's going on with this guy is here, man. It's literally every night something going on outside, and it keeps getting weirder. That's the first time I've ever seen a triangle craft, but anyone that's on my socials and everything, they can see the pictures.
Yeah, mind blowing.
It was crazy, man. I've never seen anything like that. And then so yeah, I sent it I think Mothman actually grabbed a hold of it and sent it to somebody, and they did some like an IR enhancement.
What happened?
You can see the outline. You can see the outline of the. Was it you or somebody? I can't remember. Was it somebody sent it to somebody? Grabbed it. I was talking to in messages. I can't remember who it was. Might have been you, but yeah, it is Mothman. So he sent it to someone, and they did some enhancement on it. But you can definitely see like the shape of the triangle a lot better. Yeah, Ryan, somebody did it.
Send that over to Drew, and that way we can show it tomorrow night on the show.
You got it.
I got the enhanced one.
Yeah, you got the
Okay.
two green. You got two green pictures, and then one. It's all still shots, so it's no video on this one. It's just I just happened to catch it in a still shot. So it's 3 pics I sent to you. One is the actual pic, and then the 2 green ones are the IR enhancement. Flat 6 did it. Looks like he's Ryan.
Yep. Flat 6 on it.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool one, man. Probably a really exciting one, really.
Yeah. That's for sure.
But I've definitely seen military here in this area, but not as far as like UAP and stuff like that. I've never seen anything like that. Anything that I've ever saw was definitely had the vibe of, I've had a connection to. I've showed this to several people, and one of the questions that gets asked me a lot is like, what did I feel during it? I didn't feel anything. It was an accident. But any other time I've seen something, it's always been some type of connection. So,
well, guys, make sure that you're here for that. Tomorrow, we're going to definitely dive into that and show what it can't be mistaken for anything else, man. That's all I'm telling you. I'm like it wasn't when you sent that over and I looked at it. I'm like, you can tell exactly what you're looking at. Like, there's no doubt what it is you're looking at. So kind of put you on the edge of your seat, kind of hopefully have you come back tomorrow so we can check that out. And then maybe we'll also look into what we found out or didn't find out about the UFO so big that they had to build a building around it. With that being said, guys, we are going to wrap this thing up, get up out of here so we can see you guys right back here tomorrow for another awesome conversation, moving the needle forward with this dude right here, Drew Banky, Steve Stockton tomorrow night also, and surprise for a guest. With that being said, have a great rest of your night, guys. We want retribution. That's how we're going to get up out of here, just like that. Take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we